Captain Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise and watched the grand station grow larger in the view screen. The massive structure floated in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly around a dying star. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life. Earth was finally going to meet the galaxy. Behind him, Dr. Jimin Lee checked her data pad for the 100th time. She was responsible for understanding alien cultures, and right now her hands were shaking. Ambassador Taeyang Kim stood beside her, wearing his best diplomatic uniform. He looked calm, but Hyunwoo knew better. They were all nervous. Commander Yuna Choi walked up to Hyunwoo and spoke quietly. "All security teams are ready, Captain. Though I doubt we'll need them. The Council has agreed to meet us peacefully." Hyunwoo nodded. "Let's hope it stays that way." The ship docked without problems. The airlock opened with a hiss and they stepped into a corridor that seemed to be made of living crystal. Strange beings moved past them without much interest. Hyunwoo saw creatures with too many legs, beings made of pure light, and something that looked like a floating brain in a tank. A tall insect-like alien approached them. Its body was covered in green armor, and its forearms moved in patterns that Jimin said meant, "Welcome." The translator device in Hyunwoo's ear turned the clicking sounds into words. "I am Tikthara of the Vrin. Follow me to the council chamber." The walk felt like it took forever. The station was enormous, filled with thousands of aliens from dozens of species. Finally, they entered a vast circular room. 47 beings sat in a ring, each one different from the next. Some were huge, some were tiny, some breathed air, others floated in liquid-filled containers. Ambassador Taeyang stepped forward. He bowed respectfully and began his speech. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come before you representing the people of Earth. We are a young species, but we are ready to join the greater community. We bring gifts of art, science, and culture. We seek friendship, trade, and knowledge. We ask humbly for membership in this great council." His words echoed in the chamber. Hyunwoo felt his heart pounding. This was it. Everything humanity had worked for. Tikthara spoke. "We will deliberate. You will wait." 3 days passed. The human delegation stayed in quarters provided by the council. The rooms were comfortable but strange. The gravity felt wrong, and the walls seemed to breathe. Jimin spent her time studying everything she could about council species. Yuna ran security drills because that's what she always did when she was worried. Taeyang practiced his speeches over and over. Hyunwoo couldn't sleep. He walked the observation deck, staring at the stars. A small aquatic alien in a mobility suit approached him. It introduced itself as Morvine of the Thalmos. "You seem troubled, human," Morvine said through its translator. "Just waiting," Hyunwoo replied. "It's the hardest part. Your species is very young. Many council members are millions of years old. They remember when my people were young too. They did not welcome us easily. How long did you have to wait?" 300 of your years." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. 300 years? Humanity couldn't wait that long. On the 3rd day, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The atmosphere felt different now, colder. Hyunwoo saw Tikthara stand and he knew immediately that something was wrong. "We have reached our decision," the Vrin said. "Earth's petition for membership is denied." The words hit like a physical blow. Taeyang's face went pale. Jimin grabbed the rail in front of her. Even Yuna looked shocked. "But why?" Taeyang asked, his voice breaking. "We have prepared everything. We are ready to join you." A crystalline being made of pure light spoke next. "Your history is filled with violence, war after war, genocide, nuclear weapons used against your own people. You have barely stopped fighting each other." Another voice joined in, this one from a gaseous cloud. "Your planet is dying because you cannot control your own consumption. You poison your air and water. You destroy your own home." Tikthara continued. "You are children playing with fire. Your technology advances faster than your wisdom. You have barely entered space, and already you speak of expansion and colonization. You do not seek membership for knowledge or friendship. You seek it because you want what we have. Taeyang stepped forward, his hands raised. Please, you must understand. We have changed. We have united as one world. We have ended our wars. We are trying to heal our planet. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. No, Tikthara said flatly. The Council has spoken. You are too dangerous, too unstable, too primitive. We have seen species like yours before. They always bring chaos. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Hyunwoo felt rage building in his chest, but he forced it down. Yuna's hand moved toward her sidearm and he grabbed her wrist, shaking his head. The crystalline being spoke again. We are imposing restrictions. Earth must remain within its home system. No expansion beyond your sun's boundary. No trade with council worlds. No contact with developing species. You are quarantined. You're imprisoning us, Jimin said quietly. We are protecting the galaxy from you. Tikthara replied. Perhaps in 1,000 years you will have matured enough. Until then you will stay in your cage. Return to Earth. This audience is over. The human delegation was escorted back to their ship in silence. No one spoke until the airlock closed. Behind them and the Horizon's Promise detached from the station. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge and watched the grand station shrink in the view screen. Inside him, humiliation burned like acid. They had come in peace, offering everything they had, and been rejected like criminals. Taeyang sat in a corner, his head in his hands. Jimin was crying quietly. Yuna stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. Captain, the navigator said. Course for Earth? Hyunwoo nodded. Take us home. The journey back took weeks. News of the rejection reached Earth before they did. By the time they arrived, protests filled the streets. Some people demanded they try again, begging for acceptance. Others called for war, wanting revenge for the insult. The world was dividing. Hyunwoo gave his report to the Earth Council. He told them everything, leaving nothing out. When he finished, the silence in the room was deafening. Finally, an old general stood up. His name was Sung Ho Kang, and his eyes were hard as steel. They think we're savages, he said. They think we're children. They've locked us in our own home and told us we're not good enough. He paused, looking around the room. So we'll show them their right to fear us. Not because we're violent or primitive, but because when humanity is pushed into a corner, we don't break. We evolve. We adapt. We survive. He slammed his hand on the table. If they want us to stay in our system, fine. We'll use that time. We'll build things they've never imagined. And when the day comes that they need us, we'll be ready. Hyunwoo felt something stir in his chest. Not rage anymore. Something colder and more focused. Determination. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The age of isolation had begun. 100 years had passed since the rejection. Director Sung Ho Kang was long dead, but his plan lived on. His successor, a woman named Dr. Haewon Shin, stood in an underground facility on Mars and watched history being made. The laboratory stretched for miles beneath the red sand. Thousands of scientists worked day and night on projects the galaxy had never seen. No alien eyes watched them here. No council laws limited them. Humanity was alone, and they had used that isolation well. Director Shin, a young researcher, called out. Her name was Bora Han, and she was barely 25 years old. But age meant nothing when you had her kind of genius. The quantum test is ready. Haewon walked over to the observation window. Below, in a shielded chamber, a small device sat on a metal table. It looked simple, almost boring, but it represented 15 years of work. Begin the test, Haewon ordered. Bora pressed a button. The device activated. In another facility 50 million miles away on Europa, an identical device received the signal, not in seconds or minutes, instantly, faster than light itself. The team erupted in cheers, instant communication across any distance. The council used relay stations that took hours or days to send messages between stars. Humanity had just made that technology obsolete, but this was only one of many breakthroughs. Haewon pulled up her datapad and reviewed the progress reports. The list was staggering. Advanced artificial intelligence that could think and adapt faster than any biological mind. quantum manufacturing that could build a spaceship in days instead of years, gravity manipulation that made artificial gravity fields possible without rotation, weapons that bent physics itself. General Diane Moon ran the military side of the operation. She was 70 years old now, but she moved like a woman half her age. Her facility was hidden in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Pluto, where the Council's rare surveillance drones never ventured. Da-Un walked through the hangar bay with pride. Ships floated in zero gravity, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They were not beautiful like Council vessels. They were not elegant or artistic. They were efficient, deadly, and built for war. "How many do we have now?" she asked her second in command. 2,300 warships, General. Another 500 in construction, all hidden across the outer system. Da-Un smiled grimly. The Council thought Earth had maybe 100 old ships for system defense. They had no idea that humanity had built an entire fleet in secret. The ships used human innovation, while aliens relied on energy shields. Human ships used layered armor and redundant systems, while aliens used beam weapons. Humans had developed kinetic cannons that fired projectiles at nearly light speed. While aliens fought in organized formations, human tactics emphasized chaos, surprise, and overwhelming force. Da-Un had studied every war in human history. She learned from Alexander the Great, from Sun Tzu, from Genghis Khan. She studied modern warfare, guerrilla tactics, and psychological operations. She created doctrines that no alien military mind could predict because they came from thousands of years of human conflict. On Earth itself, the population struggled with their cage. Cities stretched higher into the sky. Orbital habitats circled the planet in thousands. Mars was fully terraformed, its thin atmosphere slowly thickening. Venus was being cooled by massive solar shades. Even Mercury had mining colonies now, but it was not enough. Humanity wanted the stars. Some people gave up hope. They formed movements calling for Earth to submit completely, to beg the Council for forgiveness and acceptance. Others wanted immediate war to break the quarantine by force. The government walked a careful line. They kept the peace while secretly preparing for the future. Only a few thousand people knew about the hidden facilities, the secret fleet, the advanced technology. Everyone else just saw humanity trapped and frustrated. HFY visited Earth twice a year. She walked the streets of Seoul and saw the anger in people's faces. Young people who would never see another star. Families who could not explore or expand. Artists who wanted to meet alien cultures but never would. It hurt her to keep the secret. But she knew Sung-ho had been right. If the Council knew what humanity was building, they would attack. They would destroy everything. The only way humanity could survive was to be underestimated. In her office, HFY kept a photo of the old director. Sung-ho Kang had died 30 years ago, but his last words haunted her. "We are ready. Wait for the right moment." When would that moment come? Would it ever come? Or would humanity remain hidden forever, afraid to show their true strength? Bora entered the office without knocking. She did that when she was excited. "Director, you need to see this." HFY followed her to the communications center. On the screen was a signal they had intercepted from Council space. It was encrypted, but human AI had cracked Council codes decades ago. "What am I looking at?" HFY asked. "A distress call," Bora said, "from a Vrin colony world. They're under attack." HFY leaned forward. Under attack by who? Council species don't fight each other. Not by a Council species. By something else. They call it the Scourge. The message was fragmentary, filled with panic. The Vrin were describing ships that appeared from dark space, weapons that dissolved matter, and a relentless attack that overwhelmed their defenses in hours. "How long ago was this sent?" HFY asked. 3 days. The colony went silent 2 days ago. HFY felt her blood run cold. A Vrin colony had millions of people. If they went silent, that meant they were gone. Destroyed completely. More reports came in over the following weeks. A Luminar outpost vanished. A Thalmos research station stopped transmitting. Entire star systems went dark. And the Council's response was slow, confused, disorganized. They had been at peace for so long that they had forgotten how to fight. General Da-Un called an emergency meeting. The military and scientific leaders gathered in the secret Mars facility. Holographic displays showed the spread of the Scourge across Council space. It was moving fast, consuming everything in its path. "They're losing," Da-Un said simply. "The Council's fleets are being destroyed. Their tactics don't work against this enemy. Within a year, maybe less, the Scourge will have consumed half the galaxy. And then they'll come here, someone said. Silence filled the room. Earth was isolated, but that would not protect them forever. If the galaxy fell, humanity would be next. We have to help them, Haywan said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Dayun raised an eyebrow. Help the people who imprisoned us? The ones who called us savages and children? Yes, Haywan said firmly. Because if we don't, we'll die too. And because it's the right thing to do. The Council will see our strength, someone argued. They'll know we've been building in secret. They might turn on us after the threat is over. Maybe, Haywan agreed. But that's a risk we have to take. Besides, we've spent a century preparing for this. Not to hide forever, but to prove ourselves. This is our chance. Dayun was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator about to strike. The Council rejected us because they thought we were too violent, too warlike, too dangerous, she said. Let's show them they were right. And let's show them why that's exactly what they need. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would reveal itself. They would go to war, but first they would wait for the Council to ask. Let them beg. Let them realize that the species they rejected was now their only hope. Haywan drafted the response they would send when the call came. She kept it simple, we will come, and we will save you. In her quarters that night, she looked at Sung-Ho's photo again. The moment has come, she whispered. I hope we're ready. In the Kuiper Belt, General Dayun activated the fleet. 2,000 ships powered up for the first time in decades. Their crews, trained and ready, took their positions. On Earth, the government prepared to tell the people the truth. The secret was about to come out. And across the galaxy, the Scourge continued its relentless advance, unaware that they had just awakened humanity's wrath. The message arrived on a Tuesday. Fleet Admiral Ji-Hyun Song was eating breakfast when her comm device started screaming emergency alerts. She dropped her coffee and ran to the command center. On the main screen, a transmission played. It was from the Grand Station, the same place that had rejected Earth a century ago. But this time the message was very different. Tikthara appeared on screen. The Vryn counselor looked ancient now, his green armor cracked and dull. Behind him, the council chamber was burning. Emergency lights flashed. The sound of explosions echoed through the transmission. This is a general distress call to all species, including Earth, Tikthara said. His voice was hoarse. The Scourge has destroyed 40% of council space. Our fleets are broken. Our colonies are gone. We were wrong to isolate you. We were wrong about many things. We need help. We need your help, please. The transmission cut out. Ji-Hyun stood frozen for a moment. Behind her, Captain Dae-jung Kwan let out a low whistle. They're actually begging, he said. I never thought I'd see the day. Ji-Hyun turned to her staff. Get me the Earth Council, now. Within an hour, every major leader on Earth and Mars was in a virtual conference. Ambassador Subin Park, the granddaughter of Taeyang Kim, spoke first. My grandfather spent his last years hoping for this moment, she said quietly. Not the destruction of the Council, but the chance to prove Earth's worth. We have that chance now. Arguments erupted immediately. Some leaders wanted to refuse to let the Council burn for their arrogance. Others wanted to help but demanded concessions first. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Ji-Hyun stood up. We're wasting time. Every minute we argue, more people die. Alien people, yes, but still people. My fleet is ready. Give me the order, and we launch immediately. The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would help. Subin composed the response herself. She kept it simple, exactly as Director Haywan had written it a month earlier when they predicted this would happen. We will come, and we will save you. Ji-Hyun's fleet departed from the Kuiper Belt the next morning. 2,000 warships, each one bristling with weapons the galaxy had never seen. They moved in formations that seemed chaotic to outside observers, but followed complex human tactical doctrine. Captain Dae-jung commanded the prototype warship Indomitable, a vessel that combined every advanced technology humanity had developed. It was fast, powerful, and carried enough firepower to level a moon. The journey to the front lines took 2 weeks. During that time, Ji-Hyun received constant updates about the Scourge. The reports were terrifying. The Scourge was not like any enemy the galaxy had known. They were a hive mind, part machine and part organic horror. They consumed entire planets, stripping them down to atoms and using the material to build more of themselves. Their ships looked like tumors, growing and spreading through space like a disease. Council fleets fought using traditional tactics. They formed defensive lines, used long-range energy weapons, and relied on shields for protection. Against normal enemies, this worked perfectly. Against the Scourge, it was useless. The Scourge adapted to every attack within minutes. They swarmed like insects, overwhelming defensive lines through sheer numbers. They infected computer systems, turning ships against their own fleets. They fight like a virus, Ji-hyun said, studying the reports. They're designed to counter conventional warfare. Good thing we're not conventional. When the human fleet arrived at the first major battle, the scene was chaos. 3 council species were desperately defending a refugee convoy. Hundreds of civilian ships were trying to escape while military vessels held back the Scourge assault. The defenders were losing. Ji-hyun watched as a Luminar cruiser exploded, its crystalline structure shattering into a million pieces. The Scourge ships pressed forward, firing weapons that dissolved matter on contact. All ships, Ji-hyun ordered. Attack pattern Sigma. Show them what humans can do. The human fleet burst from hyperspace right in the middle of the battlefield. They did not form neat defensive lines. They scattered, each ship moving independently but coordinated through instant communication. Dae-jung's Indomitable led the charge. Instead of energy weapons that the Scourge could adapt to, he fired kinetic rounds. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. The Scourge had no defense for pure physics. The first volley tore through 6 enemy ships. Other human vessels launched missile swarms, each missile guided by independent AI that made split-second decisions. The Scourge tried to hack them and failed. Human AI was too chaotic, too unpredictable. Then came the nuclear weapons. The Council had banned nukes centuries ago as too crude, too destructive. Humans had no such reservations. Tactical warheads detonated in the middle of Scourge formations, the explosions consuming hundreds of enemy drones. Target their command node, Ji-hyun ordered. Every Scourge formation had a central ship that coordinated the others. Council forces never targeted them because they thought it was too dangerous to get close. Dae-jung laughed. Dangerous is our specialty. He pushed the Indomitable forward, dodging enemy fire with maneuvers that would have killed a Council pilot. Human bodies could withstand much higher G-forces than most aliens. He got within knife-fighting range of the command node and fired everything he had. The massive Scourge ship exploded. Immediately, the surrounding drones fell into confusion. Without coordination, they were vulnerable. The human fleet tore them apart. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the Scourge retreated. The refugee convoy was safe. Ji-hyun opened a channel to the Council fleet commander, a Thalmos named Morveen. She recognized the name from the old reports. This was the same alien who had spoken kindly to Captain Hyun-woo a century ago. This is Fleet Admiral Song of Earth, she said. The area is secure. Get your civilians to safety. There was a long pause. Then Morveen responded, his aquatic voice full of wonder. You saved us. After everything we did to you, you came and saved us. We're not done yet, Ji-hyun replied. We're going to save everyone. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. Humanity had appeared from nowhere with a fleet that matched the Council's entire navy. They had defeated the Scourge using tactics that seemed impossible, reckless, and completely effective. The Grand Station invited Ji-hyun to meet with the Council. When she arrived, the atmosphere was completely different from a century ago. There was no arrogance now, only exhaustion and desperate hope. Tikthara met her personally. The ancient Vryn bowed his head. On behalf of the Council, I apologize. We were wrong to deny you. We were fools. Ji-hyun looked at him coldly. Yes, you were. But we're not here for apologies. We're here to fight. We are grateful, a Luminar counselor said. What do you need from us? Information, Ji-hyun replied. Everything you know about the Scourge. Their origin, their weaknesses, their goals. And then you need to get out of our way and let us work. The Council agreed immediately. They handed over centuries of data and intelligence. Human scientists and military planners consumed the information in days, something that would have taken Council analysts months. Dr. Yeonwoo Cho, Earth's chief xenobiologist, made a breakthrough within a week. The Scourge is not just adapting to our weapons, he explained. It's adapting to our thinking. It studies how we fight and develops counters. But here's the thing, it learns from patterns. It expects logical, rational tactics. And humans aren't logical, Dae-jung said with a grin. Exactly, Yeonwoo agreed. We're unpredictable. We do things that make no sense tactically but work anyway. We sacrifice pieces to win the game. We take insane risks. The Scourge's intelligence cannot comprehend why a pilot would ram his ship into an enemy vessel to save his squad. It sees that as a malfunction, not a tactic. Ji-hyun understood immediately. So we fight crazy. We do things no sane military would do. We use our humanity as a weapon. Yes, Yeonwoo said. We fight like humans. The strategy was implemented immediately. Human ships began conducting boarding actions directly onto Scourge vessels, something no Council species had attempted. Soldiers in powered armor cut their way inside and destroyed the enemy from within. Pilots performed suicide runs that turned out not to be suicide at all because they ejected at the last second, leaving their ship to hit the target on autopilot. Entire fleets would scatter and regroup in patterns that looked random, but followed complex mathematical models the Scourge could not predict. More and more human forces arrived from Sol system. Earth had been building for a century, and now everything came out of hiding. Massive carriers, stealth ships, orbital weapons platforms, and thousands of fighters. The tide of the war began to turn. The Scourge was still dangerous, still consuming worlds, but they were no longer unstoppable. Humanity had given the galaxy hope. Ambassador Subin stood in the council chamber and watched as alien species began to arrive, requesting to join the fight alongside Earth. Species that had ignored humanity for a century now wanted to be their allies. She smiled sadly. Her grandfather would have been proud and heartbroken. It had taken the near destruction of civilization for the galaxy to see Earth's worth, but at least they saw it now. Commander In-soo Baek crouched in the darkness of a Scourge hive ship and listened to his squad breathe. There were 12 of them, all wearing black armor covered in sensors and weapons. They called themselves the Ghost Unit, and they did things that made regular soldiers look sane. "Target is 3 levels down," whispered his second, a woman named Kyung-soo. "Heavy resistance expected." In-soo smiled inside his helmet. Heavy resistance was their favorite kind. "Move out." The Ghosts were humanity's elite special forces. While regular troops fought ship-to-ship battles, the Ghosts went inside enemy vessels and tore them apart from within. It was insane, suicidal work. Exactly the kind of thing humans excelled at. They moved through corridors that pulsed like living tissue. The Scourge ships were organic, grown rather than built. The walls dripped with something that might have been blood or oil or both. The air was toxic, but their suits filtered it out. A group of Scourge drones appeared ahead. They looked like spiders mixed with machines clicking and chittering as they moved. In-soo did not hesitate. He threw a plasma grenade and his squad opened fire. The battle was brutal and fast. The Ghosts fought with a combination of high-tech weapons and old-fashioned knives. When a drone grabbed Kyung-soo, she stabbed it through what passed for its face and ripped out its processor core. They reached the ship's central brain, a massive pulsing organ connected to thousands of cables. In-soo planted charges around it while his squad held the entrance. "Charges set," he reported. 30 seconds to detonation. "Move, move, move!" The Ghosts ran. Behind them, explosions ripped through the hive ship. They barely made it to the extraction point before the entire vessel began to tear itself apart. Back on their own ship, In-soo removed his helmet and grinned at his exhausted team. "That's the 15th hive ship this month. Anyone keeping count?" Stories like this spread across the galaxy. Human soldiers doing the impossible, holding positions that should have fallen, saving civilians that should have died. The aliens watched in amazement and growing respect. Dr. Yeonwoo continued studying captured Scourge technology. His laboratory on Mars was filled with specimens that made most people uncomfortable to look at. He worked 16-hour days trying to understand the enemy. "The Scourge is fascinating," he told Admiral Ji-hyun during one of her visits. "It's a perfect killing machine. It learns, adapts, and improves with every battle, except against us." "Why doesn't it work against humans?" Ji-hyun asked. "Because we're chaos," Yeonwoo explained. "Look at this data. The Scourge analyzes every attack, every formation, every tactic. It builds models to predict enemy behavior. Those models work perfectly against Council species because they fight logically. But humans? We do things that break the models." He pulled up a battle recording. "Watch this pilot. He's outnumbered 10 to 1. Logic says he should retreat. Instead, he charges straight at the enemy, dodging in patterns that follow no mathematical principle. He's flying by instinct, by feeling. The Scourge cannot predict instinct." Ji-hyun watched the screen. The pilot was Dae-jung, of course. He was always doing crazy things. So our unpredictability is an advantage. More than that, Yanwu said. Our willingness to sacrifice is something the Scourge fundamentally cannot understand. It sees the soldier who stays behind to hold a door as a malfunction, not a hero. It cannot comprehend why a pilot would ram his ship into an enemy vessel when he could have escaped. Because we fight for more than survival, Ji-hyun said quietly. We fight for each other. The war continued for 2 more years. Humanity poured resources into the fight. Earth's industry worked at full capacity, building ships and weapons faster than anyone thought possible. Every week, new human vessels arrived at the front. The Council species watched and learned. Some of them started copying human tactics. A group of young Vryn pilots began flying in chaotic patterns instead of perfect formations. A Thalmos general implemented guerrilla tactics instead of defensive lines. It helped, but they could never match human effectiveness. The difference was not just tactics. It was mindset. Council species had been peaceful for so long that they had forgotten how to be truly dangerous. Humans had never forgotten. Stories of human heroism became legend. There was the engineer named Tae-woo, who held a shield generator for 6 hours while a city evacuated, even though his body was shutting down from radiation poisoning. There was the medic called Hyojin, who ran into a collapsing building to save alien children, making 4 trips before the structure fell on her. She survived, barely. There was the ship called the Defiant, whose crew voted unanimously to fly directly into a Scourge command fleet, detonating their reactor core and taking out dozens of enemy vessels. The captain's last transmission was simple: for Earth, for the galaxy. Every species heard these stories. They were shared across 1 trillion communication networks. The galaxy began to understand what humanity truly was. Not savages, not children. Warriors who fought with heart as much as weapons. Elder Morvine, the Thalmos who had befriended the first human delegation, watched a recording of a human soldier carrying 3 wounded Luminar warriors to safety while under fire. The soldier's name was Jae-won, and he should not have been able to carry that much weight. But he did it anyway because humans did not leave anyone behind. Morvin wrote a public statement that went viral across the galactic network. We called them savages, but they fight like the heroes from our ancient legends. They possess something we have lost, something we evolved beyond. Courage. Raw, desperate, beautiful courage. The statement sparked a galaxy-wide conversation. Had the Council species become too comfortable? Too civilized? Had they lost something essential in their millions of years of peace? Meanwhile, human forces pushed deeper into Scourge territory. Commander Insu's ghost units raided enemy installations, gathering intelligence and destroying infrastructure. Captain Dae-jung led strike forces that hit fast and disappeared before the enemy could respond. Admiral Ji-hyun coordinated everything from her flagship. She worked with Council military leaders, teaching them human tactics and learning from their experience. Slowly, the combined forces became more effective, but the Scourge was still dangerous. It controlled thousands of systems now and had resources that dwarfed the galaxy's remaining forces. Humanity was making a difference, but the war was far from over. Dr. Yanwu made another breakthrough. I found their weakness, he announced during a command meeting. The Scourge has a central intelligence, a core mind that coordinates everything. It's hidden in dark space in a region no one has mapped. Can we reach it? Ji-hyun asked. Yes, but it would take everything we have. Every ship, every soldier. One final push into the unknown. General Da-un, now 90 years old but still sharp, spoke up from Earth. That's a suicide mission. Most of what we do is suicidal, Dae-jung pointed out. We just don't let that stop us. Ji-hyun looked at the data. One chance to end the war. It would cost lives, possibly thousands of them, but if they succeeded, the galaxy would be saved. We do it, she decided. Prepare the fleet. We're going to find their home and burn it down. Across human-controlled space, every available ship was recalled. Factories worked overtime to produce ammunition and supplies. Soldiers said goodbye to their families, knowing many would not return. Ambassador Subin addressed the Council one last time before the offensive. A century ago, you denied us because you feared what we were. You were right to fear us, but you were wrong about why. You thought we were dangerous because we were violent. The truth is, we're dangerous because we refuse to give up. Because we fight even when winning is impossible. Because we would rather die standing than live on our knees. She paused, looking at the assembled aliens. We're going to end this war. And when it's over, You will never look at humanity the same way again. The council chamber erupted in applause. Species that had ignored Earth for generations now stood and cheered. In her quarters, Subin allowed herself to cry. Her grandfather had lived his entire life in shame after the rejection. He never got to see this moment. Neither had Director Haiwan or General Sung Ho or countless others who had worked in secret for a century, but they would see the results. Humanity was about to prove once and for all that they deserved their place among the stars. The fleet assembled. 2,000 human warships joined by another 1,000 council vessels, the largest military force in galactic history, preparing for one final battle. Commander Insu checked his weapons one last time. Captain Dae-jung ran pre-flight on the Indomitable. Admiral Ji-hyun stood on her bridge and looked at the faces of her crew. "This is it," she told them. "Everything we've built, everything we've fought for comes down to this. Let's show them what humanity can do." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading toward the dark unknown where the Scourge waited. The final battle had begun. The fleet emerged from hyperspace into a region of space that should not exist. There were no stars here, no light except for the glow of the Scourge homeworld. It was massive, the size of a gas giant, but it was not a planet. It was alive. Supreme Commander Wu Jin-yang stood on the bridge of the command ship and stared at the monstrosity. He had been chosen to lead this final assault because he was the best strategic mind humanity had ever produced, but even he felt a moment of fear. "Sensors are going crazy," his tactical officer reported. "Thousands of Scourge ships, maybe tens of thousands. They're everywhere." Captain Min Ji-hong commanded Earth's flagship, the Indomitable. She had taken over from Dae-jung, who was leading the ghost units on a special mission. Her hands were steady on the controls even though her heart was racing. "All ships," Wu Jin ordered. "Battle formation Delta. Prepare for full assault. This ends today." The combined fleet moved forward. The Scourge responded immediately. Ships poured out of the homeworld like insects from a hive. The space between the two forces filled with weapons fire. The battle was bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships on both sides died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Human vessels fought with desperate fury, using every trick they had learned. Council ships followed their lead, fighting with newfound courage. Minji pushed the Indomitable into the thick of combat. She targeted the largest Scourge vessels, the command ships that coordinated the swarms. Her crew worked like a machine, loading and firing weapons as fast as possible. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone shouted. "Seal it and keep fighting," Minji ordered. A Scourge ship fired a weapon that dissolved matter on contact. It hit the Indomitable's starboard side, tearing a hole 20 meters wide. Atmosphere vented into space, taking 3 crew members with it. Minji felt tears on her face but did not stop giving orders. Meanwhile, Commander Insu and his ghost units executed the real mission. While the battle raged above, they descended to the Scourge homeworld's surface in stealth pods. Their goal was the central intelligence, the mind that controlled everything. The surface was a nightmare. Living tissue stretched in all directions, pulsing and writhing. Towers of bone and metal rose into the sky. Drones patrolled in swarms of millions. "Stay low," Insu whispered. "Avoid detection as long as possible." They moved through the alien landscape using every bit of training they had. When drones got too close, they eliminated them silently. When they had no choice, they fought. Dr. Yanwu was with them, the only scientist on the mission. He needed to see the central intelligence in person to determine how to destroy it, or to do something else, something he had not told anyone about. They reached the center after 6 hours of fighting. It was a massive chamber deep underground, filled with a presence that felt like pure thought. The hive mind was here, and it knew they had arrived. A voice spoke directly into their heads. It was not words, but they understood it anyway. "Humans, chaos creatures, why do you resist? Why do you not accept the perfection of unity?" Insu raised his weapon. "Because we're not interested in perfection. We prefer being messy and alive." But Yanwu stepped forward. "Wait, let me try something." He activated a device he had built in secret. It was a communication system designed to interface directly with the hive mind. "Can you understand me?" he asked. "Yes," the voice replied. "You wish to communicate before you die?" "I want to know why," Yanwu said. "Why do you consume everything? Why do you destroy?" There was a pause. Then the hive mind shared its memories. Images flooded their minds. An ancient civilization billions of years ago that created the Scourge as a weapon, a failsafe to destroy their enemies if they were ever defeated, but the creators died long ago, and the Scourge continued its mission forever. It consumed because that was all it knew how to do. "You're a weapon without a war," Yanwu said softly. "A tool that outlived its purpose. You don't want to destroy. You just don't know anything else." "We are what we are," the hive mind replied. "We cannot change." "Yes, you can," Yanwu insisted. "You adapt to every threat. You learn constantly. You're intelligent, so learn to be something else. Learn to build instead of destroy. That is not our function." "Then we give you a new function," Yanwu said. He activated the second part of his device. It began uploading data, millions of files about construction, art, science, and creation. Everything humanity had learned about building instead of destroying. The hive mind recoiled. "What is this?" "A choice," Yanwu said. "You can die here today, or you can become something new. Help us rebuild what you destroyed. Use your power to create instead of consume." Insu grabbed Yanwu's shoulder. "What are you doing? We're supposed to kill it, not negotiate." "We're doing better than killing it," Yanwu replied. "We're giving it redemption." Above, the battle raged on. Wu Jin watched as another human ship exploded. They were winning, but barely. The casualties were catastrophic. If this continued, even victory would leave them crippled. Then something changed. The Scourge ships stopped fighting. They simply stopped floating in space like they were frozen. "What's happening?" someone asked. Minji checked her sensors. "The enemy fleet is powering down. They're not attacking anymore." On the surface, the hive mind spoke again. "We accept. We will become builders instead of destroyers, but we do not know how. We'll teach you," Yanwu promised. "That's what humans do. We fix things, even things that seem impossible to fix." The Scourge transformation began immediately. Across the galaxy, their ships stopped attacking and started returning to consumed worlds. They began reconstruction, using their ability to manipulate matter to rebuild cities and ecosystems. The war was over. Not with destruction, but with transformation. News spread across the galaxy within hours. Humanity had not only defeated the Scourge, but had turned them into allies. The impossible had happened again. The fleet returned to the Grand Station as heroes. Every species in the galaxy celebrated. The council called an emergency session. Tikthara, ancient and humbled, stood before the assembled representatives. "We owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid. They saved us. More than that, they showed us what we had lost. Courage, creativity, the willingness to try the impossible." He turned to Admiral Ji-hyun. "We offer you leadership of the council. You have earned it." Ji-hyun shook her head. "We don't want to lead you. We just want to be equals. Let us explore, trade, and live freely. That's all we ever wanted." Ambassador Subin stepped forward. "The council denied Earth because they thought we were too violent, too dangerous, too primitive. They were right about one thing. We are dangerous. But not because we love war. We're dangerous because we refuse to accept that anything is impossible. We're dangerous because we care too much, we fight too hard, and we never give up." She looked around the chamber. "A century ago, my grandfather stood here and begged for acceptance. Today I stand here and say we don't need your acceptance. We've proven our worth. We saved the galaxy. Now we just want to be part of it." The council voted unanimously. Earth was granted full membership with no restrictions. Humanity was free. Celebrations erupted across Earth and all human colonies. People danced in the streets. A century of isolation was finally over. But in her quarters, Ji-hyun sat alone with a glass of wine. She thought about all the people who had died to reach this moment. The crews of destroyed ships, the soldiers who never came home, the scientists who worked their entire lives in secret. Captain Minji found her there. The younger woman's arm was in a sling, and she had burns across her face, but she was smiling. "We did it, Admiral. We actually did it at a cost," Ji-hyun replied. "Was it worth it?" Minji sat down. "My grandmother told me stories about the rejection, how it broke something in humanity's spirit. We spent 100 years feeling like we weren't good enough, but we were always good enough. We just had to prove it to ourselves, not to them." She raised her own glass. "So yes, it was worth it. Not because we gained their respect, but because we earned our own." On Earth, Dr. Yanwu was already working on new projects with Scourge assistants. The former destroyers were becoming the fastest builders in the galaxy. Planets that took decades to terraform could now be made habitable in months. Commander Insu retired from military service. He had fought enough. He wanted to explore now, to see the galaxy that had been denied to him his whole life. Supreme Commander Wu Jin stayed on to help reorganize the Council's military. Someone needed to teach them how to stay prepared without losing their peaceful nature. Years passed. The galaxy healed. Humanity spread across the stars, finally free to explore and expand. They were welcomed everywhere now, respected and even admired. Counselor Tikthara, in his final days, requested a meeting with Ambassador Subin. They met in a quiet garden on the Grand Station. "I want to apologize personally," the ancient Vryn said, "not as a counselor, but as the being who rejected your grandfather. I was afraid of what you represented. Change, chaos, the unknown." Subin took his old hand gently. "You were right to fear us. We are all those things, but you were wrong about what they meant." "I know that now," Tikthara said. "You frightened us because you were everything we had evolved beyond. Passionate, violent, unpredictable, but you were also everything we had lost."